What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the best fire demon witch build in Path of Exile 2. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of the setup, then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both the mid game and end game. And then finally we will go over the passive tree, attributes, your skill rotations, and even what Atlas passive should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you are looking for this build on the website, then click my link in this video description or the pinned comment. This setup's main focus is to scale fire from our attacks and target big enemy groups to then set them on fire and explode. We are going to be taking the advantage of seemingly limitless power scaling of the demon and then the massive damage of the fire skills that will help us to decimate endgame content with ease. While leveling, we are going to be similar to other casters, so we should fire, things die, we level. However, the endgame is a different beast, because once we get our basic fire setup, we can then start all the maps in the demon form and kill enemies, while its effect ramps up to 70 to even 100 stacks plus, which then we disable the form and instantly reapply to the start demon form all over again, and this way we will be able to stay in the demon form forever, while also having insane amount of DPS stacks at the same time. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the witch, and our Ascendancy is the Infernalist. Then for the first one we got the demon form with support gems such as the Vitality, Precision, Clarity, Ingenuity and the Cannibalism. Then second we got the Raging Spirits with the Fire Infusion, Feeding Frenzy and the Martial Tempo. Then next we got Fireball with a Scatter Shot, Fire Penetration, Arcane Surge and the Considered Casting. Next we have the Flame Wall with Inspiration, Arcane Tempo and Magnified Effect. Next up we have the Solar Orb with Elemental Discharge, Fire Exposure, Searing Flame and the Maim. Then for one of the last ones we got the Firestorm with Overabundance, Spell Echo, Hourglass and Inevitable Critical. Then next we have Cast on Ignite with Ember Facilate, Impetus, Energy Retention and Fire Mastery. And finally for the last one we got the Flammability with Vitality, Precision and Cannibalism. Next we also have a leveling build in case if you are starting your journey from level 0 and you want to use it up until about level 25, where you should start getting our most important skills like the Fireball and then also your first Ascendancy points, so you could unlock the demon form. So first off we have the Firebolt with a Scatter Shot. Then next we have the Unleash with the Fire Penetration. Then next we also got the Flame Wall with the Inspiration and the Arcane Tempo. And then finally we are using the Raging Spirits with the Fire Infusion and the Feeding Frenzy. This is your basic setup up until you get our build's two most important skills. In the early stages of progression we are just like a normal caster, which uses fire skills to set the enemies on fire. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works then check out my beginner guides. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this energy shield node. Then keep going like this until we get to the mana blessing. Then next we keep continuing moving forwards, and on our way grab this breath of fire and also the arcane blossom. Next up we want to go to the left and keep going until this circle, and then here we take this whole thing. Then next up we want to circle back a little, and from this point this time we move forwards until we get to the top, and then take left and we want to get all of these fire nodes. Then next up we again circle back a little, and this time take right and keep going until these nodes, so Ingenuity, Raw Mana and Arcane Intensity. Then next we want to get our two keystones, so first of all get the Eldritch Batter. And then once we have this one we go all the way to the left by following our previous path and keep going until we unlock the Mind over Matter. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of the nodes that we have are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. Also, as far as attributes go, you just simply want to fulfill your attribute requirements for the gear and skill gems, and then after that spend the rest of your leftover attributes into more intelligence. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Demonic Possession, then second get the Master Darkness, then third get the Altered Flesh, and finally for the last one we want the Baydad's Gaze. In PoE 2, earning skill points take a lot of hard work, so it will be smart not to spend your points recklessly. Of course, you can refund your passive points later, but only at a cost, so following a specific setup is extremely useful. If you're following this build, then make sure not to deviate from it, as some of the decisions that I made might not make sense at first, but is going to pay off later. And don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the tree. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start, we want to first of all get to this bottom left side like this, then now keep going until we get to this deadly evolution keystone. Then from here keep going all the way to the right. Next we again want to start from the middle, and this time go to the top middle and get all of these passives. And then from here you get the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. On top of this, we also have these other trees specifically for breaches, expeditions, rituals, delirium and etc. And for these, the order that you select them doesn't really matter, as long as you follow this exact path. So this is what we have for the ritual, then we got the delirium, then next we got the bosses, and then also specifically we have the pinnacle bosses. Then also we got the expeditions, and finally here we have for the breach. If you're looking for a full Atlas tree tutorial, then just watch my beginner guide. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the attuned wand, which gives us mana drain, and for bonus stats we mainly want increased fire damage, increased spell damage, or pretty much anything else that will increase our level or DPS of our spells. Next we also have our offhand, the advanced crystal focus, with energy shield, and for more we need increased mana energy shield, increased energy shield recharge rate, and fire resistance. Then for the helmet we have the advanced wicker tiara with energy shield, and for more we need max life, increased maximum energy shield, chaos resistance and life regen per second. Then for the chest we have the ghost right with energy shield, and we mainly want to get this armor for the chaos resistance, and because our 50% of max life is now converted to the energy shield, and this will become very useful as we're using the life regen, and because of our keystone setup, which I will explain in just a second. But as this is an endgame item to help you with the harder content, so this is not required, and you can get any other body armor, just make sure that you have good resistance, increased energy shield and life regen on hit. Then for the belt we have the utility belt, with 20% quicker flask recovery, and for more we need max life, more charm slots and life regen per every second. Then for gloves we got the expert Sombri gloves with energy shield, and for more we want to gain life per every enemy hit, then also gain life per every enemy killed and the lightning resistance. Then for boots we're using the expert feathered sandals with energy shield, and for more we need max life, increased movement speed, which is pretty much a requirement to get on every single boots, and then finally we have resistance like lightning and fire. Then for our rings we got 2 copies of the same one, so we're using the Amethyst ring with more percentage to chaos resistance, life regen per second and fire resistance. This is for sure one of the best rings, as it's pretty hard to find any good items with a chaos resistance. And then finally for the amulet we got the lunar amulet with max energy shield, max life, life regen per second and cold resistance. No matter which gear you choose, you at least want to try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Then next we have the runes. During early item progression, most gear is socketed with the resistant runes, like the desert rune, glacial rune or the storm rune. But once your elemental resistances have been capped, and elemental resistant runes are no longer necessary, then you want to opt in to increase your maximum life with body runes, or consider socketing a soul core. But right now for my whole setup I'm using the iron rune. And as far as getting this gear goes, by far the best way to get better gear in the campaign is to check the vendor in the town each time you level up, as vendors can change their offerings based on your level, so this is the best way to find upgrades. And then after level 65, you just want to keep continuing repeating your maps until tier 16. And again, for more in-depth guides, check out my gearing guide video. Then on top of this, we need to quickly look into the charms. Charms are incredibly useful, as by having the right one equipped at the right time can save you from dying. If you are struggling with certain bosses, then look into what damage type they are using, and then use that specific charm to increase your resistance. For me personally, I like to use the Taving charm for when I become frozen, then the Stone charm for stuns, and finally the Ruby charm for fire damage. But as I said, which one you choose will entirely depend on the enemies that you are fighting, so feel free to experiment and mix and match. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our rotation is pretty straightforward. Start our rotation with a solar orb which forms a huge AoV, which will spread the blind, maim and the fire exposure, while being an easy way to trigger our elemental discharge as well. Then next we use the flammability for curse, and then use the flame wall to buff our next fire skills and spread our ignite. And then from here we just cast the firestorm and finish it off with the fireball, which will do massive amounts of damage while the rest of our spells are active. And on top of this, don't forget that our Ember Facillate from the cast on Ignite is always proccing in the background. So let me know what you think about this build in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, then you definitely don't want to miss my top 3 best builds video, where I showed even more powerful builds. So click the screen now and I'll see you in the next one.